In this video, we're going to be talking about fuel systems and the carburetor and how it operates and different designs of the carburetor. To begin with the carburetor, we're going to talk about atmospheric pressure and how much atmospheric pressure is actually all around us at all times. So there's 14.7 pounds per square inch pushing down on every square inch around you. So you'll have 14.7 pounds per square inch pushing down on you at all times. That's whenever you think about a baby being born and they come out and they almost look like they're stretching or trying to lift themselves up is what they're doing, because they're not used to our atmosphere yet. They're not used to all that pressure pushing down on them. So over time they build up that strength and eventually they could start to move on their own. Pressure works exactly like my friend Peter here. It goes from high to low. It's always going to move from high to low. So if we have 15.3 psi as a high pressure, and then we had a low pressure area on the other side of our example here that was 3.7 psi, then our high pressure will always flow towards my low pressure. And you could see it could work the opposite way, mattering on where the pressure is in the system. And then also, if I have the same pressure on both sides of my system, I would have no fluid flow at all. So when I'm talking about fluid pressure, I'm talking about 1 pound of pressure per square inch is going to be considered 1 psi. So when we're talking about how a carburetor runs, there's two terms we really want to talk about. We want to talk about running lean and running rich. Mattering on the fuel-air ratio, how much fuel is coming into the engine, we will either run lean or run rich. If we have a very low amount of fuel coming into the engine with our same air ratio, at 14.7 is being pushed into our engine, if we are running low on fuel, then we are running lean. If we have a lot of fuel coming into the engine, it will be rich. We have a lot of gasoline that we're using every single time that we have a stroke of the engine. Then eventually you could run the risk of flooding, mattering on how rich you run your engine. All of this stuff, lean and rich, is all tuned on a modern day engine on the computer of the car. If we're talking about small engines, this can all be changed on the mechanical system connected to the carburetor. The lunch lady for you is like a carburetor. So she decides how much food or fuel your body will get that day. So she could decide if you're going to get a lot of food or a little amount of food. So if you have a lot of food, it's almost like you're rich. You have a ton of food, you're rich, you're full, you have a lot of money. If you're running lean, that means you have very little food, or you're hungry, or you want more, okay? So when we're talking about an engine running lean or a carburetor running lean, that means that it's getting a lower fuel ratio than a regular running engine. And if it's running rich, then it's actually getting more fuel. The first part we're going to talk about on our carburetors are our venturis. What the venturis do is they allow us to take that 14.7 psi, which is this high pressure outside area, and we're going to squeeze it inside the venturis and actually push them into a low pressure area near the combustion chamber. So we have a low pressure area in the combustion chamber that actually sucks in air through the carburetor and allows us to mix it with fuel and go into our engine. These venturis are almost like slides for our air particles. So they'll climb up the slide, and then as they come down, they'll gain speed and quickly move into the engine. So as speed increases, pressure actually decreases. And that brings me to Bernoulli's law. So Coach Bernoulli, there's an idea to understand how Bernoulli's law works. But Coach Bernoulli is a track coach, and he has a student named Aaron, and he wants Aaron to run fast because then there will be less pressure on him when they go to the track meet. So the faster Aaron runs, the less pressure there is. The slower Aaron runs, the more pressure is going to be on Coach Bernoulli, and the less likely it is that they'll win the track meet. When we're talking about Bernoulli's principle, we have velocity and we have area, and then we have high pressure and low pressure. So in a high pressure area moving to a low pressure, you could see that velocity increases, so speed increases as we get to a lower pressure area. Now with Bernoulli's principle, we could talk about the venturi and how airplanes actually fly. So if this was the side wing of an airplane, we would have a low pressure area on the top of it, and we would have a high pressure area on the bottom of it, and like Pressure Peter always likes to do, we want to go from high to low. So as speed increases, that high pressure area wants to move to that low pressure area more and more and more and more until that airplane lifts off. The next thing we have is the fuel bowl and the bowl vent and our emulsion tube. So in our fuel bowl, this is the bottom of our carburetor. We have a bowl vent out here that actually allows this 14.7 psi, that pressure, atmospheric pressure, to be sucked into this bowl vent. The reason we want atmospheric pressure in our bowl vent is because when that air hits this venturi and the pressure starts to go down on it, and it starts to increase speed, okay, pressure's going down, speed is increasing. What's happening is this low pressure area also takes fuel from this high pressure area and sucks it up this emulsion tube right here. So that's called an emulsion tube in the middle of our carburetor. And we have a bowl vent and a fuel bowl. Then we get to the throttle plate. The throttle plate is what opens and closes as we hit our gas pedal or our throttle on our engine in order to allow more of an air-fuel mixture in or less of an air-fuel mixture in. So by controlling the throttle, we could actually control the RPMs on that engine. We also have a system used for idling. This is called the idle circuit. So this circuit comes from the emulsion tube, goes straight up our carburetor, and actually comes out behind the throttle. The reason that would be is because if this throttle is all the way closed and we're idling, we're still going to need gasoline to make this air-fuel mixture correct. So we have a idler circuit that takes gas and puts it behind the throttle so we have enough gas to mix with that air and our cylinder doesn't bog out on us. We also have this adjustable jet up here. This is called a orifice jet. We use that, screw it in or unscrew it, in order to make sure that our idle is set correct. Or we have one down here at the bottom of our fuel bowl, and that's actually to restrict or allow more fuel to flow into the engine. And just like we talked about earlier, this would change how rich your engine is or how lean your engine is. The next thing we have is this choke plate. The choke plate is used to actually allow us to start on cold starts. So if this choke plate was all the way open, then I would have atmospheric pressure all throughout here. What I'm doing is I'm closing this choke plate, so I have atmospheric pressure here, I have atmospheric pressure in my fuel bowl, but up here, inside the carburetor, I actually have a lower pressure area. So by making this lower pressure area, I'm allowing more fuel to get up into here, into the carburetor or the throat, and I'm allowing me to start my engine easier. So a lot of times we'll close our choke on a cold start to make sure that our engine starts up strong. Next thing we're going to talk about is the bulb primer. The reason we have a primer bulb system on our engines is to force fuel into the actual carburetor. So this forces fuel up the emulsion tube and into the venturi to help during cold starts. Just like our last slide where we talked about closing the choke, we also have a primer that could push gasoline up this tube and put it into the venturis, so when we start our car or start our small engine, we'll have enough gasoline in there to get a good start going. We also have a system called air bleeds. Air bleeds are used to actually make our idle and make our fuel economy better inside of our engine. Those air bleeds bring air into the fuel that's going through our system, so we have air coming into the idler system, or idler circuit, and we also have air coming into our main emulsion tube. The reason this is because we have air that's going to mix with our main gasoline going to our emulsion tube, and we have air going through mixing with our idler circuit going through our idler tube. The reason we have these is because sometimes this air ratio might be off, and this is going to adjust that for us. The next thing we have is transitional holes. What these holes do is, as this throttle turns and opens more and more, we might not be feeding enough gas into the system yet, so we actually use our idle circuit that's connected to our transitional hose to transition from an idle into first gear, second gear, third gear, or if you're just revving the engine up and opening the throttle up, this will feed enough gas that our engine doesn't bog out, hurt our engine, or anything like that. Here's the carburetor system with the emulsion tube, and then there's our orifice jet at the bottom of our emulsion tube, and that's going to be screwed in and out to change the fuel, increase or decrease the vaporization process. The pilot jet is just another name for the orifice jet, and it controls the fuel flow in the idler circuit and for the carburetor, so that's just another screw for our orifice jet. We have different types of carburetor designs. We have an updraft, a downdraft, side draft, and multiple barrel. When you're talking about small engines, you could see pretty much any of these updraft, downdraft, or side draft ones. When you're talking about a V8 or a V6 or something, a carbureted engine that might be put in a car, you're looking at more of a multiple barrel carburetor. The reason this might be different is because of the orientation of the engine, the complexity of the engine, who designed it might use a different design, and another thing might be money, how much it's going to cost to actually manufacture the part, and then also emission requirements. There might be different emission requirements mattering on where that engine is going, in Europe, maybe in the US. Then we get to fuel filters. Fuel filters are rated by microns, parts per square inch. So we rate these mattering on how many little parts per square inch, 75 microns, how many openings there are on the actual fuel filter. What this is going to do is it's going to not allow anything except gasoline into our engine. We want the cleanest gas always fed into our engine. Some of these even restrict water from going into your engine, which is nice. We don't want anything that might hurt our engine going into it, so we need to filter that stuff out.